Part 1. The Sound of Silence. Loneliness is a word we often whisper, not scream. It creeps into our lives like fog, soft, slow, and almost invisible until we're surrounded by it. In the modern world, with its endless scrolls and streaming sounds, we are more connected than ever before. Yet, beneath the surface of likes and filtered smiles, an epidemic grows, not one of viruses or noise, but of silence. The silence of empty rooms, unanswered messages, and meals eaten with no one across the table. But let us begin here, in this quiet, not with fear, but with honesty. To feel lonely is not a flaw. It is not weakness. It is human, and it is everywhere. Loneliness in today's world is not reserved for the elderly or the isolated. It lives in city apartments and dorm rooms, in the minds of teenagers with 1,000 followers, and in the hearts of parents who tuck their children in with smiles while wondering when they themselves will feel seen. It hides behind success, behind popularity, behind marriages and meetings and morning commutes. You could be surrounded by people and still feel like a ghost. Why does this happen? Because we mistake interaction for connection, and in this confusion, we forget how to be alone without feeling broken. But what if I told you this? You are not broken. Not because you're alone, not because you feel like you're wandering through your days unseen, unheard, untouched. What you're experiencing isn't the end of your story. It may be the beginning of something extraordinary. Let us not rush to escape loneliness before we ask what it's trying to teach us. The discomfort we feel when we're alone often stems not from solitude itself, but from the stories we've been told about it. That being alone means being unloved. That solitude is something to be fixed. That it is dangerous to be left with our thoughts. But here's a truth that may be difficult to believe at first. Solitude is not the enemy. It is the gateway, the quiet path that leads inward to a place so many of us avoid, but all of us must travel ourselves. Because in this world of curated noise, the deepest parts of who we are often drowned out. When you stop, when you unplug, when the notifications go quiet, what you find waiting isn't nothing. It's you, with your mess and your magic, your fears and your courage, your questions and your longings. In solitude, you begin to remember. You remember what your voice sounds like when it isn't echoing someone else's opinions. You remember the things that stir your heart without needing applause. You remember what it means to be whole, not because someone else completes you, but because you complete yourself. And this is where loneliness becomes sacred. Because before connection can truly matter, before love can be authentic, before community can hold you safely, you must first know who you are without them. Loneliness can strip us bare, yes, but in that bareness, we often find the parts of ourselves we had buried just to belong. There is beauty in this nakedness, a kind of rebirth. Of course, none of this means that loneliness isn't painful. It is, deeply so. Humans are wired for connection. We thrive on it. The touch of a hand, the understanding nod, the simple presence of another person who says, I see you. These things matter, and yearning for them is not weakness, it is brave. But we must not confuse the ache for connection with the belief that we are unworthy without it. We are still worthy, still full, still radiant in our quiet moments. The journey through loneliness is not about denying our need for others. It's about discovering that our need is not desperation. It's not emptiness looking to be filled. It's fullness longing to be shared. And so, as we begin this reflection, I ask you to pause, not to run from your loneliness, not to mask it with distractions, but to sit with it, to listen. What is it trying to say? Perhaps it's pointing you towards something neglected, your creativity, your inner voice, your intuition. Perhaps it's nudging you to slow down, to breathe, to feel. Perhaps it's inviting you to break free from the pressure to always be with others and instead to learn the power of being with yourself. This is the beginning of transformation because when you learn how to stand in your own presence and not shrink, when you learn how to hold yourself with compassion, when you learn how to make friends with silence, you no longer fear being alone. You begin to see that solitude is not a void. It's a canvas. And on that canvas, you can paint the life that is truest to you. Not the life that looks good in pictures, but the one that feels right in your bones. This is the power of being alone, not as a punishment, but as a pilgrimage, not as a verdict, but as a vision. You are alone, but not broken. You are beginning again, and there is courage in that. Part 2. The Mirror Within. When we think of loneliness, we often imagine it as a place of darkness, a cold room, a silent phone, an empty bed. But what if it's also a mirror? One that doesn't lie, doesn't flatter, doesn't rush. One that waits for us to finally look, not at the surface, but into the depth of who we really are. Solitude strips away the noise, the roles we play, the masks we wear. When no one is watching, when there's no one to perform for, something powerful happens. The truth emerges. Sometimes it comes softly, like a memory long forgotten. Other times it arrives like a storm, forcing you to feel what you've buried, to confront parts of yourself you've hidden, even from your own heart. This can be terrifying, but it can also be liberating. In a world obsessed with doing, being alone gives us permission to just be. And in that stillness, we rediscover the things we've overlooked, the small joys, the deep hurts, the quiet dreams that never asked for fame, only a chance. Maybe you've spent your life bending to expectations. Maybe you've shaped yourself to be what someone else needed, wanted, loved. But in solitude, there is no one else to please. There is only you. And that can feel both lonely and empowering. This is where self-discovery begins. You begin to see the outlines of your true self, unpolished, unfiltered, undeniable. You realize your worth isn't measured by how many people text you back or how often you're invited out. It's not proven by productivity, likes, or validation. It's inherent. You were enough before anyone ever told you otherwise. It's easy to forget that. Easy to drown in comparisons, where someone else's highlight reel makes your own reflection feel inadequate. But when you're truly alone, you have the rare chance to turn inward, to reintroduce yourself to the person you've always been. What do you love? Not what you've been told to love, not what looks good on a resume or dating profile. What stirs your soul when no one else is looking? What do you fear? Not just the surface fears, the job interviews, the awkward silences, but the deeper ones. The fear of being unloved, unseen, unchosen. And most importantly, what do you long for? Loneliness, painful as it is, often points us toward that longing. It reveals the shape of the hole inside us, not so it can be filled with anything or anyone, but so it can be filled meaningfully. Many people try to escape loneliness by running into the arms of distraction. They chase relationships not out of love, but fear. They fill calendars to avoid quiet. They scroll endlessly not for connection, but to numb the ache. But avoidance isn't healing. It's postponement. True healing happens when we sit with loneliness and ask, "What are you here to show me?" Maybe you'll find it's a sign you've outgrown the life you've been living. Maybe it's telling you to build deeper connections, not more of them. Maybe it's whispering that the person you miss most is actually yourself. This isn't easy work. It takes courage to look at yourself in that honest mirror. But it's there that you begin to see your resilience. You see you've survived moments you thought would break you. You see that your heart, though bruised, still beats with hope. You see that even in your loneliest hours, you are still here, and that matters. Being alone gives you a chance to heal the relationship with yourself, to stop criticizing and start comforting, to stop demanding perfection and start offering grace, to stop waiting for someone else to love you the way you crave and begin doing it for yourself. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. You begin to glow, not the kind that comes from being noticed, the kind that comes from being known by you. You walk differently. You speak more gently. You start setting boundaries not out of anger, but self-respect. You stop settling for less, not because you're entitled, but because you've remembered what you're worth. Loneliness becomes a teacher. It teaches you that you can sit in discomfort and still find peace, that you can walk alone and still move forward. You become your own companion, not in a bitter way, in a sacred way. And when you stop fearing your own company, you become someone the world needs, someone who's found joy without applause, who can love without clinging, who can be with others not out of fear of being alone, but from wholeness. That is the gift hidden in the pain of loneliness. It's not just a passage to connection, it's a passage to you. And when you find yourself, you stop looking for completion. You begin looking for resonance, not someone to save you, someone who sees you. But first, you must see yourself. So take this time, however lonely it feels, and turn it into something sacred. Because you are alone, but not broken. You are unfolding, and that is a miracle worth watching. Part 3. The Space Between Us. We often talk about loneliness as if it's only about being alone, but one of the most painful kinds of loneliness is the kind we feel while surrounded by others. You can be in a crowded room, smiling on the outside, laughing even, and still feel unseen. This is the loneliness of disconnection. The truth is, connection isn't measured by presence alone. It's not how many people are around you, but how many truly understand you, how many genuinely see you, not just your image, but your essence. We live in a time when it's easier than ever to interact, yet harder to feel known. We text instead of talk. We scroll instead of sit. We react with emojis instead of emotions. In doing so, we've replaced intimacy with interaction. But intimacy needs vulnerability. It requires slowing down. It asks us to show up as we really are, not just the curated versions we've learned to present. This kind of honesty is rare, and it's why so many, even in relationships or friendships, feel alone. Not because people don't care, but because we're not connecting from the depths. We're skimming surfaces, afraid that if we go too deep, we'll be rejected, or worse, ignored. But here's the thing. The solution to loneliness isn't just proximity, it's presence, it's authenticity. And to be authentic with others, we must first be authentic with ourselves. That's the sacred gift solitude gives us. It teaches us to stop pretending, to take off the mask, to stop fearing who we are when the lights go out and the crowds fade away. It teaches us to be honest in our hearts so we can be honest in the world. Because when you've spent time with your soul, really listened to it, you start craving more than small talk. You crave realness, depth, meaning, and you become someone who seeks that and gives it. This changes everything. Your relationships become richer. You start valuing quality over quantity. You stop chasing people who don't cherish you. You stop trying to prove your worth to those who can't see it. Instead, you begin drawing in the kind of people who can see it. Because now you see it. You radiate it. Your presence begins to say, "This is who I am, and I'm okay being me. I'm not afraid of my own silence anymore." The space between us, between you and others, starts to feel less like a chasm and more like a bridge. But that bridge can only be built when we bring our true selves to it. Yes, it takes courage to reach out, to say, I'm lonely, to say, I need someone. That kind of openness feels vulnerable, but vulnerability is not weakness. It's the birthplace of connection, and it begins with you being brave enough to speak your truth. Sometimes that means admitting your life is full of people, but lacking in closeness. Sometimes it means going deeper in conversations or walking away from connections that drain you, even if it means walking alone for a while. And that walk, though hard, is not empty. It's in those in between places, between who you were and who you're becoming, that you find your truest strength. The walk through loneliness sharpens your vision. It makes you more discerning. It teaches you to hold out for the kind of connection that nourishes your soul, not just fills the time. You stop accepting crumbs of attention and start asking quietly but firmly for presence, for respect, for understanding. And in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. Your healing becomes an invitation. Loneliness then becomes a bridge, not just to yourself, but to others who are waiting to meet someone real, someone kind, someone brave enough to say, I've been there too. That's the power of embracing solitude. It refines your sense of what matters. It helps you drop the need to impress and focus on the need to connect. It clears out the noise so the signal of your own voice can ring true. And when that voice speaks, people who are meant for you will recognize it. They'll hear you. They'll respond. Because there are people out there, yes, even now, looking for the very connection you long for. People tired of shallow waters, wanting something deeper. People who want to grow, who want to know you, not just follow you. But you must go first. You must be willing to walk through your loneliness, not as a victim, but as a seeker, as someone who knows that being alone isn't being forgotten, that sometimes you must be separated from the crowd to find your own voice. That voice is your guide. And as you begin to trust it, to follow it, you'll find that the loneliness you feared wasn't a punishment. It was a passage to clarity, to truth, to love, the real kind. You are not alone because you're broken. You are alone because you are becoming. And on the other side of this transformation is a life where you are no longer afraid of the quiet, but grateful for it. A life where connection is no longer about how many, but about how deep. So step into it. Part 4. From Emptiness to Expansion. There comes a moment in every journey through loneliness when the silence begins to shift. At first, it's deafening. The absence of voices, the pause in your calendar, the space where companionship used to live. It feels like something vital has been stolen. But slowly, gently, that silence changes. It softens. It opens. And what once felt like emptiness begins to feel like possibility. Because here's a quiet truth. Not every void is a wound. Some are invitations, invitations to expand, to create, to rebuild. Loneliness strips away the excess. It shows us what we've outgrown, what no longer serves us, what was never ours to carry in the first place. It clears the stage. And for the first time in a long time, you get to ask, what do I want to fill this space with? Maybe it's art, or writing, or planting seeds in the ground and watching them sprout. Maybe it's laughter that rises up from your own chest, not from a joke, but from the miracle of being alive. Maybe it's stillness. Maybe it's purpose. What matters is this: you begin to build a life that reflects who you are, not who you were told to be. This is the expansion. This is the transformation that can only come after loneliness has done its work. And yes, it is work, emotional, spiritual, often exhausting, but it's also sacred because it asks you to look at your life not as something that happens to you, but something you are shaping with your own two hands and the choices you make each day. You begin to realize that this time alone hasn't diminished you. It has revealed you. You are more than your relationships, more than your job, more than your pain. You are not defined by who left or who didn't show up. You are not a product of someone else's absence. You are a creator in your own right, and you can begin again. This is the shift from emptiness to expansion. You stop waiting for life to find you and begin building life where you are. You stop chasing love to fill a void and begin cultivating love within yourself. You stop thinking of solitude as a punishment and start seeing it as the fertile ground where your truest self can take root. This change doesn't always happen in big, cinematic ways. Often, it looks like small choices. Saying no to a gathering that drains you and yes to a walk in the woods. Turning off the noise and listening to your breath. Writing your thoughts in a journal and realizing they matter. Making your own dinner and lighting a candle, not because someone's coming over, but because you're here and you deserve beauty too. That's the essence of expansion, treating yourself not as a placeholder or an afterthought, but as a whole person, one worthy of attention, affection, time. The loneliness that once felt like an ache becomes a sanctuary, a place where you return again and again, not because you must, but because you can, because you've discovered that there is a vast inner world inside you, one that doesn't shrink when others walk away, one that grows. And from that place, you begin to see others differently too. You no longer search for people to rescue you. You seek those who walk beside you, who recognize the path you've traveled and honor the strength it took to walk it. You start to form connections that are not about escaping loneliness, but about enriching the lives you're already cultivating. You meet people not to fix your solitude, but to share your expansion. This shift changes the way you love, the way you listen, the way you show up. You become more present, more compassionate, more discerning. You realize that not everyone is meant to go with you, and that's okay. You are no longer desperate to belong. You belong to yourself, and that belonging, it radiates. It becomes a signal to others. This is someone who knows who they are. This is someone who has sat with their pain and risen from it. This is someone who knows how to be alone, and in that knowing becomes someone worth knowing. Aloneness, when embraced, gives rise to power, not power over others, but power within yourself. The kind of power that says, I am here, I am whole, I am not waiting to be chosen, I am choosing myself. And when you do that, consistently, bravely, quietly, you start to see just how much space you've been given, space to breathe, to grow, to reach. Because loneliness is not a fixed state. It's a passage, a process, a teacher. And one day, you will look back and realize that it wasn't just the hardest chapter. It was the most important one. The moment when everything fell away and you discovered that what remained was not a shell or a shadow, but something luminous, something resilient. You, alone, but not broken, still standing, still becoming, still expanding into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. Part 5. The light you carry. There's something extraordinary that happens when you come through the valley of loneliness. Not around it, not over it, through it. You walk in burdened and bruised, believing the silence will consume you. But you walk out carrying something you didn't have before. Light. Not the kind of light that blinds or demands attention. It's subtler than that. It's the steady, quiet glow of someone who has found peace with themselves. It's the warmth of someone who no longer fears their own company. It's the kind of light that doesn't come from escaping the darkness, but from honoring it. This light is what you now carry, and whether you realize it yet or not, it's already illuminating the path for others. Because here's another truth: loneliness is universal. Everyone has felt it, everyone will feel it again. But not everyone will own it, not everyone will face it. Most will mask it, run from it, bury it in busyness or blame. But you didn't. You stayed. You learn to listen to it, to learn from it, to let it shape you, and that makes you powerful. It makes you someone who understands the value of presence, someone who doesn't take genuine connection for granted, someone who sees people, really sees them, not as means to an end, but as souls, just like yours, trying to be understood. Your loneliness gave you empathy, and now you have something to offer the world that cannot be bought or taught: depth. You become the kind of friend who sits quietly with others when they're in pain, without needing to fix it. The kind of partner who doesn't expect someone else to complete you, but who offers your completeness as a gift. The kind of human who creates space for yourself, for others, for what's real. And in a world so full of noise, this kind of presence is a rare and radiant thing. We're often taught that healing means returning to who we were before the hurt. But true healing means becoming someone new, someone wiser, softer, stronger, more compassionate, more real. Loneliness didn't return you to your old self. It revealed your true self. Now you move through the world differently, not with walls, but with boundaries, not with fear, but with awareness, not with desperation, but with desire, a desire for relationships that are rooted in truth, not illusion, a desire for connection that mirrors the connection you've built within. You begin to speak more gently to yourself, to forgive more easily, to rest without guilt. You begin to measure your life not by how full your calendar is, but by how full your heart feels. And you begin to understand that this light you carry, it's not just for you. It's a signal, a lighthouse, a silent invitation to others who are still wandering through their own darkness. You become someone who helps others feel less alone, not because you offer answers, but because your presence reminds them that survival is possible, that peace is possible, that joy, even here, is possible. You don't need to be loud to be luminous. Your strength isn't in how much you say, but in the honesty behind your silence, the grace in your gaze, the peace in your pace. You've walked through your own wilderness, and now you move with intention. And in this way, you begin to live not in spite of your loneliness, but because of what it taught you. You start to feel awe again, awe at the sunrise, at your breath, at the way healing unfolds one quiet moment at a time, awe at your own resilience, awe at the miracle of standing exactly where you are today, knowing how far you've come. You begin to feel gratitude, not just for the people who love you, but for the times when no one did. Because now you know your value is not defined by how others see you. You are enough simply because you exist. And as you carry that truth with you, it changes how you move through the world. You become someone who holds the door open, who smiles at strangers, who checks in, not out, who listens not to reply, but to understand, not because you've never known loneliness, but because you have. Not because you're untouched by pain, but because you've been touched by it and continued forward anyway. That is your light. That is your power. You are no longer a shadow of what was lost. You are a lighthouse of what was found. You are not broken. You are open. Not empty, but available, not waiting, but living, not incomplete, but whole in ways you never imagined. And this is the life loneliness prepared you for, a life where you are no longer defined by absence, but by presence, a life where your inner world is so rich, so full, that anyone who joins you must come not to rescue, but to walk beside. So let that light shine, not to prove anything, not to convince anyone, but simply because it's who you are now, a soul who walked through loneliness and emerged with love for yourself, for your life, for the world. Part 6. The Gift of Your Own Company. There's a kind of beauty that blooms in stillness, a beauty easily missed in the rush of the world, in the striving, the scrolling, the endless noise. It's the beauty of becoming truly comfortable in your own company, and once you experience it, something changes inside you. You begin to realize your own presence is enough. It doesn't mean you stop longing for others. It doesn't mean you give up on love or connection. It simply means you no longer see yourself as a placeholder, waiting for someone else to make your life meaningful. You are no longer a waiting room. You are the destination. So many of us spend our lives chasing the idea that happiness lies in someone else's arms, someone else's approval, someone else's voice saying, "You are worthy." But when you sit with yourself long enough, quietly enough, compassionately enough, you hear a different voice, your own, and it whispers, "You were always worthy." You start to enjoy your own company in ways you never thought possible. Not just tolerate it, enjoy it. You take yourself on walks, prepare meals with care, choose books that nourish you, music that soothes you, silence that welcomes you. You begin to ask, "What do I want today?" And that question is no longer frightening, it's freeing. You laugh at your own jokes, you catch your reflection and smile. You rest when you're tired, not because someone gave you permission, but because you respect yourself enough to listen. Slowly, your relationship with yourself becomes less about judgment and more about joy. This is the quiet revolution of solitude. It's not flashy, it won't trend, but it transforms you from the inside out. Because when you learn to enjoy being alone, you stop fearing the pauses in life. You stop rushing to fill every moment. You appreciate the spaciousness of your days. And in that space, creativity is born. Healing happens. Wonder returns. You begin to trust yourself, not blindly or arrogantly, but deeply. You trust your instincts, your timing, your values. You stop asking everyone else what you should do and start listening to the wisdom that's been inside you all along. You become your own safe place. From that place, everything changes. You no longer grasp for relationships out of fear. You attract them from peace. You stop losing yourself trying to please. You show up with clarity. You stop shrinking to fit into someone else's mold. You expand, and the right people make space for your truth. This doesn't mean you'll never feel lonely again. Even the most self-aware people experience loneliness. But now you have tools. You have roots. You know how to sit with that feeling without letting it define you. You know it will pass. It's just a visitor, not a verdict, because you've befriended yourself. And that friendship is one of the most powerful things you'll ever build. It's the foundation for everything else, for how you work, for how you love, for how you set boundaries, speak up, rest, dream, create. When you love your own company, you stop begging others to stay. You stop shrinking to be chosen. You stop apologizing for your needs, your pace, your preferences. You start living a life that feels good on the inside, even if it doesn't always look perfect on the outside. You start holding yourself like someone worth protecting, and you stop breaking yourself to keep others whole. This is not isolation. This is liberation. Once you discover that peace can be found in your own presence, you stop depending on chaos to make you feel alive. You begin to choose stillness over drama, depth over distraction, wholeness over half-hearted attention. You begin to choose you, and that choice is powerful. That choice sends a message to the world. I know who I am. I've sat with myself in silence. I've tended to my wounds. I've listened to my own breath in the middle of the night. I'm no longer afraid of being alone. That kind of peace is magnetic. It draws in people who are also whole or on the path to wholeness. It draws in opportunities that align with your truth. It draws in a life that reflects the love you've cultivated within. And yes, there will still be hard days, days when the silence feels too loud, when you miss someone who isn't coming back, when you question whether this path is worth it. But even then, you are never truly alone because you've built something eternal. You've built a home within yourself, a refuge, a wellspring, a place to return to again and again, no matter what the world throws at you. That is the gift of your own company, not perfection, not a life without longing, but a life where you no longer abandon yourself, where you stay, where you love, where you begin again, each day, each breath, each step, with grace. And that is what it means to be alone, not broken. It means standing in your own light and knowing it is enough. Part 7. Redefining belonging. It's one of our deepest human desires, to feel part of something, to know we matter, to feel seen, heard, held. It's why loneliness can cut so deep, because it challenges our sense of place in the world. We often think belonging comes from being accepted by others, from being chosen, from being included in the group, the partnership, the inner circle. But what if true belonging doesn't begin there? What if it begins here, inside you? What if the deepest belonging is the one you create with yourself? When you belong to yourself, something shifts. You no longer contort to fit into spaces not built for you. You stop shape-shifting to please. You stop trading authenticity for acceptance. You start showing up fully, even if it means standing alone. That's not easy, especially in a world that rewards conformity and punishes difference. But your uniqueness, your story, your truth, your voice, isn't a liability. It's your greatest asset. Loneliness, as painful as it is, gives you the space to rediscover that. It removes the noise of other people's expectations. It lets you ask the harder questions. Who am I when I'm not performing? Who am I when I'm not needed, not wanted, not praised? And in that stillness, you begin to hear your own answers. You realize you don't need to fit in everywhere. You just need to feel at home within yourself. This is the beginning of true belonging, not because you found the perfect community, not because everyone finally understands you, but because you understand you, because you chose yourself again and again, and from that inner belonging, you begin to move differently in the world. You speak your truth more freely. You walk into rooms without shrinking. You engage without trying to earn your right to exist. You listen more and explain less. You become less attached to approval and more grounded in alignment. That's not arrogance. That's integrity. You're not pushing people away. You're drawing the right ones in. The ones who recognize the courage it takes to stand in your own skin without apology. The ones who are also tired of pretending. The ones who are searching, not for perfection, but for presence. This kind of connection is deeper, richer, slower. It may be fewer in number, but it's infinite in value because you're no longer performing for love. You're inviting it, and only what's real can reach you now. You begin to surround yourself with people who nourish you, not just entertain you. People who ask how your heart is, not just what you've achieved. People who meet you in your depth and don't flinch. People who remind you that the right relationships don't require you to abandon yourself. This is the life you create when you belong to yourself first. And yes, it takes time. There will still be moments when the ache returns, when you long for companionship, when you wonder if you're too much or not enough. But those moments don't shake you like they once did, because now You are already whole. You don't need to be chosen to be valid. You don't need to be loved by everyone to be lovable. You don't need a crowd to feel complete. You belong right here as you are. And the more deeply you embody that truth, the more it radiates outward. People feel it in your presence, in your steadiness, in your joy, in your ability to be alone without being lonely and to connect without losing yourself. You become a safe place for others, yes, but first, for yourself. That kind of person changes the world, not because they shout the loudest, but because their very being gives others permission to be real, too, to stop running, to stop shrinking, to stop abandoning themselves for a seat at a table that was never made for them. You become a reminder that it's possible to live from the inside out, to build a life that feels like home no matter where you are, to find your people not by chasing, but by being, and when those people arrive, because they will, it won't be because you performed your way into their hearts. It will be because your light, your truth, your presence made space for them to find you. That is real belonging, born not from fear, but from freedom. So, if you are walking through a season of loneliness, wondering if you'll ever feel at home again, start here. Start by choosing yourself. Start by listening inward. Start by building a life that feels like something you'd want to come home to. Because when you belong to yourself, truly and fully, you stop chasing belonging and start creating it. And in that sacred act, you'll find what you were always looking for. Not a crowd, not a performance, but connection, rooted, real, radiant. You are not broken. You are building something unshakable. You are not too late. You are right on time. You are not lost. You are arriving, at last, into yourself. Part 8. Seasons of Solitude. Life moves in seasons. Just as the earth turns through winter and spring, each of us moves through cycles of closeness and distance, of togetherness and solitude. Loneliness is not a permanent state. It is a season. And seasons, by their very nature, are meant to change. But when you're in a lonely season, it can feel endless. It can feel like this is how it will always be. The silence stretches. The nights feel longer. You wonder if something is wrong with you, if you've missed your chance, if everyone else has moved on and left you behind. But that's not the truth. The truth is, seasons of solitude are part of the human journey. They are not punishments, but passages. They are not indicators of failure, but invitations for growth. They come to clear out the clutter, to sharpen your inner vision, to deepen your roots. Winter teaches the trees to rest before they bloom again, and solitude teaches the soul to strengthen before it connects again. In our culture, we often try to skip the winter. We romanticize the harvest and fear the fallow. But real transformation happens underground, in the quiet, in the stillness, in the places we cannot post or prove. This is where character is formed. This is where your truth is clarified. This is where your future self is being quietly born. So, if you're in a season of loneliness right now, know this: you are not stuck. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are simply in a season that is shaping you in ways you can't yet see. You are being refined, not erased. You are being deepened, not diminished. You are being invited, not excluded. In these moments, you can choose to resist the season, or you can choose to move with it. You can numb the discomfort, or you can explore it. You can run from the silence, or you can enter it and ask what it wants to show you. The seasons don't ask us to control them. They ask us to trust them, to let each phase do its work, knowing that change is woven into the fabric of life, that no feeling, no chapter, no struggle lasts forever. And in that trust, something inside you settles. You stop fighting the loneliness and start learning from it. You stop measuring your life by who is beside you and start measuring it by who you are becoming. And slowly, a new kind of hope emerges. Not the loud, showy kind, but the steady kind. The kind that wakes you up one morning and reminds you, there is still beauty here. There is still purpose in this breath. There is still meaning in this moment, even if no one else sees it. You begin to see your life not as a series of missing pieces, but as a mosaic, made beautiful by contrast. The soft beside the sharp, the solitude beside the joy, the waiting beside the becoming, and you start to see yourself not as someone abandoned, but as someone entrusted with your own growth, your own voice, your own becoming. You realize that this season has given you gifts that constant company never could: self-trust, resilience, depth, perspective, appreciation. You stop resenting the season and begin to respect it. You know now that every connection that comes in the future will be stronger because of the strength you built in solitude, that every word you speak will hold more weight because it was forged in silence, that every step forward you take now will echo later in ways you can't imagine. Because the truth is, even in this season, you are still living, still creating, still mattering. You don't have to wait for spring to bloom. You don't have to wait for a partner to feel loved. You don't have to wait for the crowd to feel seen. You are blooming now, quietly, steadily, beautifully. And one day, when the season shifts, and it will shift, you will look back and realize that you weren't just surviving. You were becoming. Becoming someone who knows how to be whole, even in the in-between. Becoming someone who knows how to be patient, even when nothing makes sense. Becoming someone who can sit in silence and still feel alive. That is the gift of seasonal solitude. It doesn't last forever, but it changes you forever. So let the season do what it's here to do. Don't rush it. Don't resist it. Don't wish it away. Live it. Learn from it. Let it unfold you. Because when the new season arrives, when the doors open, when the invitations come, you won't just be ready. You'll be radiant. You'll be rooted. You'll be real. You'll step forward not with desperation, but with intention. Not with emptiness, but with overflow. And the people who meet you there, they'll meet all of you, not just the part that was waiting, but the part that grew. You are not broken. You are in season, and the season is working in your favor, even if you can't yet feel it. Part 9. Becoming the person you needed. If loneliness teaches you anything, it's empathy. You start to recognize the quiet battles in others, the tired eyes behind polite smiles, the hesitation in their voices, the subtle pauses that say, I wish someone really understood me. You begin to see yourself in them, and in that recognition, something powerful is born: compassion. You begin to wonder, what if I became the person I needed back then? Not just for others, but for yourself. Because chances are, during your loneliest moments, what you longed for wasn't someone to fix everything. It was someone to sit beside you, to acknowledge your pain, to say, I see you. You're not invisible. You're not a burden. You're enough. So become that. Become that gentle voice, that quiet presence, that anchor of warmth and kindness for yourself first and then for others. This doesn't mean you carry everyone's weight. It doesn't mean you save the world, but it means you start showing up differently, more grounded, more real, more loving. You begin to respond to loneliness not with avoidance, but with tenderness. You create a world within you where all your parts are welcome: the strong and the scared, the hopeful and the tired, the growing and the grieving. You say to yourself what no one else thought to say. You're doing so well, even if it doesn't feel like it. I'm proud of you. I'm not going anywhere. And the more you practice this inner care, the more your outer world begins to shift. You begin to attract relationships that reflect your self respect. You stop tolerating what drains you. You begin to invest your time in what aligns, not what distracts. You begin to heal the parts of you that once begged for attention, and instead, you offer them your own. You realize that loneliness is not cured by being surrounded, it's cured by being understood. And you understand yourself now more than ever before. That understanding is your superpower. It allows you to connect from a place of truth, not performance. It allows you to listen without judgment, to speak without shame, to show up without fear. You're no longer searching for mirrors in others. You've found your reflection within. And that reflection is no longer someone waiting to be rescued. It's someone rising. Becoming the person you needed means giving yourself what you once believed only others could provide: safety, love, validation, rest. It means learning how to sit with your own sadness and still choose kindness. It means learning how to disappoint others when it's necessary to protect your peace. It means learning how to hold space for both joy and pain, and recognizing that both can exist at once. Loneliness didn't make you weaker. It made you honest. It made you strip away the illusions and confront what really matters. It made you ask questions most people avoid. It made you wrestle with your own soul and walk through fire just to reclaim your voice. And now that you have it, you'll never lose it again because you know how to find it in the stillness, in the dark, in the moments when it feels like no one else gets it. You get it. And that matters. It matters because there are people out there who need what you've learned. People still wandering, still waiting, still believing they're the only ones who feel this way. Your story can be the reminder. You're not the only one. And it does get better. But you don't have to shout it from the rooftops. Just live it, authentically, kindly, quietly, if that's your way. Your wholeness is not in your volume, it's in your presence. You're no longer chasing healing like it's somewhere far away. You're living it, breath by breath, choice by choice. You are becoming the person who knows how to sit with discomfort and not be undone by it. The person who knows that being alone is not the same as being unloved. You are not missing something. You are discovering something. And as you live from that discovery, you stop asking, "Who will stay?" and start asking, "What do I want to grow?" You begin to build a life that's not based on being chosen, but on being true. And yes, people will come, the right ones, the ones who feel safe in your presence because you are safe in your own. The ones who stay not out of obligation, but because there's room for them in your life, not to fill a void, but to walk beside you on solid ground. This is what happens when you become the person you needed. You become a lighthouse, not to lead anyone else home, but to remind them they have a home within, too. And you carry that light with you always, through the changing seasons, through the quiet nights, through the milestones and the mundane, through whatever life may bring. You are not broken, you are becoming, and your becoming is exactly what this world needs. Part 10, Alone, Not Broken. And now we arrive at the end, or perhaps the beginning. You've walked through the long corridors of silence. You've faced the ache that crept in when the world was loud, but still didn't see you. You've endured the nights when loneliness pressed against your chest like weight. You didn't escape it, you met it. And in doing so, you discovered something you never expected. You were not empty. You were evolving. You were not broken. You were becoming. This is the truth we're rarely taught. Solitude isn't shameful. Loneliness isn't weakness. These are not scars on your story. They are the soil in which your strength was rooted. In being alone, you learn to listen. You listen to your breath, to your heartbeat, to the long neglected whispers of your soul. You heard the doubts and the dreams, the wounds and the wisdom. You learned to stay, even when everything inside you screamed to flee. And in staying, you grew. Now you know. Presence doesn't always require company. Joy doesn't always require noise. Healing doesn't always require answers. You learn to trust yourself, to sit in discomfort without demanding immediate relief, to celebrate without needing an audience, to rest without guilt, to cry without apology, to stand without anyone holding your hand. You became your own foundation, and that is a rare kind of power. The world will try to sell you a million ways to avoid loneliness. It will tell you to stay busy, stay distracted, stay surrounded. But you know better now. You know the sacred value of space, of breath, of silence. You know that peace doesn't come from having people around you. It comes from having peace within you. And you've built that peace, brick by brick, tear by tear, step by step. So, if you find yourself alone again in the future, because you will at times, you won't be afraid. You'll know how to hold yourself gently, how to ask the right questions, how to find comfort in a single candle, a morning breeze, a song that understands you better than words. You'll remember being alone isn't something to fear, it's something to honor, because now you've seen what lives inside the stillness. You found the strength that doesn't scream, the love that doesn't beg, the self-worth that doesn't waver. And with that, you've become a beacon, not because you chased light, but because you became it. This world needs more of that. It needs people who know how to be alone and still feel whole, people who don't need noise to feel alive, people who can walk with others without needing to carry them or be carried, people who love from abundance, not from longing. You are one of those people now. You are no longer afraid of the quiet. You are no longer looking for someone to rescue you. You are walking forward, not empty, but full, not lost, but home, not broken, but beautifully, radiantly whole. And your presence will remind others of their own strength, not through speeches or declarations, but through the way you show up, the way you hold eye contact, the way you listen deeply, the way you love without fear, the way you honor your own needs and respect the needs of others. You are a living invitation to authenticity, a reminder that aloneness is not the absence of life, but the beginning of true living. So take all you've learned. Take the ache, the quiet, the depth, the clarity. Take the self-trust, the wisdom, the gentleness, the power. Take your story, not as something to hide, but as something to offer. Live boldly, not because you have all the answers, but because you are no longer afraid to ask the questions. Love deeply, not because you need someone to fill you, but because your heart overflows. Create honestly, not to impress, but to express. Move freely, not because everything is easy, but because you know now you can walk through anything, because you already have. So wherever you go from here, know this: you carry the light of someone who has met themselves. You carry the strength of someone who has survived their own silence. You carry the grace of someone who stayed. And you carry the truth of this moment, this closing breath in our shared story. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not incomplete. You are whole. You are worthy. You are ready. You are, above all, alone, not broken.